this is Dre from Dragon Consulting. So if you have been with me before, welcome back. And if this is your first time viewing one of my videos, then welcome. Today I want to talk to you about detailed objectives and how defining and communicating more detailed objectives can actually work to motivate teams in a healthcare IT environment. So with any new project that gets going or any initiative that an organization sort of undertakes, one of the first things that occurs is a group of individuals, whether it be the project manager or the leadership team, gets together to define what the goals are and what some of the outcomes are that they're going to measure. But what I want to ask today and what I want to talk about is if there's ever an instance where that stays at too high of a level. So thinking to projects and initiatives that you've been part of in the past or ones that you're perhaps doing currently, are detailed objectives always defined and communicated? And are they communicated in a way that resonates with the individuals and the teams that are actually doing the work? So again, sort of keeping in mind what's going on in your organization, has there ever been an instance when there's a bit of ambiguity or where things are communicated using more of a one-size-fits-all approach? So the grand vision of the project or initiative is communicated and articulated quite well, and the general objectives are also put out there, but what the detailed things, what I actually have to do as a person working on things, that doesn't sort of find its way to me. So in order to set ourselves up for success, it's important that we define and communicate those detailed objectives. So at a level that is going to matter for each of the people that are doing tasks or working towards the goal. So the grand high level vision and the big objectives of the overall project, those are important too. But they can sometimes feel a little dissociated, and it's hard to find sort of where your place fits in with everything. So if you don't go all the way down and communicate things in a way that resonate with individuals or with smaller group teams, then you introduce some unnecessary risk to the success of your project. So what do I mean by that? Well, if people aren't understanding what it is they need to accomplish and sort of how the activities that they're working on fit into the bigger picture, they might take a bit of a different path. So you may still end up with the outcome you want and everything may work out great. And hopefully that's the case. However, if there isn't some sort of clear understanding of how the puzzle pieces fit together, then there's also a chance that things take a lot longer than you expected them to take, that they cost more than anyone wanted them to cost, and a lot of that is with sort of rework or having to sort of reset or realign, or that when you get to the end, you don't actually hit the mark that you were trying to hit. So you're in the general ballpark, but you don't get exactly where you want to go. So the reason that we want to communicate down to the sort of team or individual level when we're talking about objectives is that most people, whether we love to admit it or not, are sort of driven by, a core piece of what's in it for me. So it may not be sort of overt, tangible exchange of things, but there is just a general human drive to want to understand how something relates to you individually. So for most people that are working in the healthcare environment, there's three key drivers that they're actually looking to work for. So first is the feeling that they're making a difference in the lives of patients they serve. And they're achieving that by actually being in the industry overall. So the fact that they work in the healthcare environment, that they can, on a regular basis, see people being treated, being sent home healthier than they came, and be part of a larger organization that's actually looking to improve the wellness of the community that, serves one of their needs. The second one is the ability to support themselves and their families financially. So most people have a job, for two reasons. One, because they love the job, but two, because they're looking for some financial compensation for the work that they do, and that financial compensation is actually to support themselves and their lifestyle and their families. So that one is usually taken care of when it comes to projects and initiatives, just by nature of coming to work, following the employment guidelines, and putting out effort. So communicating things, all the way down to the detailed level doesn't really have too much of an impact on these first two. The third one is where we find the level of communication and the amount of detail that we can provide is going to make a huge difference. And that third one is a sense of personal accomplishment. So people are driven by a need to feel like they've done something, they've accomplished something at the end of the day. There is nothing more frustrating than coming to work day in and day out and leaving feeling like you're getting nowhere. So let's dive a bit into this personal accomplishment. So in order to feel like you've accomplished something, you need to actually have something to accomplish. So it becomes incredibly difficult to say, I'm really proud of myself, I did it, if there wasn't anything defined that you did. So in general, if someone says, I made it through my 8-hour day, that's a whole lot different than if they say, I contributed X, Y, and Z to an overall goal of reducing the average length of stay for our patients and getting them home quicker. So that sense of accomplishment is very different than, I made it in and I'm going home. So mobilizing a team to work collaboratively requires that they understand what it is that they're working towards and how they actually fit. So communicating in a way that has that level of detail that you can actually, check something off the list or accomplish something towards the goal gives a huge motivating drive towards your staff. So you need to make it personal. So it's very, very rare that the large one-size-fits-all objectives are actually sufficient in driving a team to work together for a transformative type initiative. So it's important that they have that big picture, but it isn't actually what's going to drive them. The feeling of personal accomplishment and being able to, accomplish and fit in things to the overall, that's what's going to drive them. So you need to define the objectives for each of the teams that are going to be playing part. So the objectives that you set for the IT staff and for the clinicians, for the leaders, for the policy group, they're going to be different. They're not going to be a one-size-fits-all. It's not possible to have everybody, doing the exact same thing in the exact same way and have it be a collaborative team-type organizational change approach. So you do need to provide enough detail so that each of the groups has measurable outcomes. So they want to have enough information so that they have something to work towards and that they understand when what they're working towards has been completed. And ideally, along the path, how close they are to reaching completion. So in communicating the goals, what types of things do you need to do? So I keep mentioning that you need to go down to enough detail so that it resonates with the team or resonates with the individual, but what does that actually mean? So that means communicating the overall goals of the project or initiative in a way that makes sense. So what is the goal? What is the overall goal of everything organizationally? What are we trying to accomplish? Is it a patient outcome? Is it a patient or family satisfaction change? Is it a process efficiency? Is it a financial gain? So what actually is it that we're trying to achieve? And why does the organization want to do this? So what is the intent behind the goal? And this is very important. If they don't understand why something is happening, it's very difficult to sort of motivate people to get behind it. So the third part from a general perspective is what happens if the goal is not achieved? So is the current state unsustainable? Is there a financial goal that you're trying to achieve because the money is going to be used for another purpose? Is there, a general prestige or award that you're trying to attain. So what is the actual reason behind it, and what happens if that reason isn't achieved? So what happens if it's not successful? And then what measurements are going to be used to determine success? So how will you know that it's successful at a big vision perspective? So what will determine the overall success of the project? And then going down to the team level, so that last part can be general and should be communicated to everybody. So as we go down to the objectives, we're going to be more specific towards the individual or the small teams. So what objectives do they need to achieve as part of the overall goal? So what exactly is it that they're being asked to do or tasked to create or come up with? And how do those objectives relate to the larger goal? So how does it fit into the big picture? So if there's too much dissociation here, it can also cause a lot of confusion and a lot of ambiguity. So how does it actually relate? A very important thing to communicate is the time frame for accomplishing each of the objectives. So with large organizational goals and projects, there is usually a sequence of events that has to happen. So when you're communicating the objective to a team, in order to reduce the risk and to have them sort of motivate to go forward, you want to make sure you communicate the time frame that things need to be done in. What resources are going to be available to them? So as they go through this, one of the big questions that comes up a lot is, are we going to have the resources we need to do it, or are we going to be overwhelmed? How will each individual team report progress? So this detail is very important for them to understand as well. So if there is an accountability path that's going to happen, or a reporting structure that they're going to need to fall into as part of this overall vision, they need to understand what that is. So they need to know how frequently the reporting is going to happen, who's going to be doing the reporting, and how the information is going to get to that individual, as well as how the information is going to feed back to them from the overall. So it's not just a one-way report. They need to understand, now that they know how they fit into the larger goal, what's going on with everybody else. And last but certainly not least, who do they talk to for concerns? So if there's questions, or if there are ideas or anything that comes up along the way, who do they go to? So in conclusion, understanding what the goal is, or the vision of the project or initiative, the reason behind it, and how each individual is going to contribute to that goal can be incredibly motivating for people. So if they actually understand how they fit in the big picture, and they have objectives, measurable objectives that they can accomplish and complete, that is something that gives individuals a sense of pride, a sense of belonging, a sense of teamwork, and it goes a huge way in actually getting your teams motivated and feeling positive about their work. So it's important to note that happy people create some pretty phenomenal things, and frustrated people, or people who don't understand what's going on, or don't have enough detail to sort of put the puzzle pieces together and see how they fit into the whole big picture, they can become very unmotivated, and they can actually introduce risk to a lot of things. So details are very important, and they can sort of work wonders for getting people to collaborate. So the quote that I want to end with today is from Andrew Carnegie, and it's, "Teamwork is the ability to work together towards a common vision, the ability to direct individual accomplishments towards organizational objectives. It's the fuel that allows common people to attain uncommon results." So thanks, and if you're interested in seeing what I'm up to next, then hit the subscribe button, and as always, feel free to enter some comments below. I'll talk to you next time.